All right. Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be learning how you can save yourself up to 50 grand on a brand new home if you're a first time home buyers. My name's Tyler. This is the Hizzy Hustle, and today we're going to break down the federal government's new GST relief for first time home buyers. Let's get into it. Just for starters, for those of you who don't know, this is Little Stormy. This is our foster of the month, number 8 for us this year. Me and my wife have been fostering. It's been quite rewarding and fun. She's a sweetheart. But yeah, so today we're going to get into a little bit of a different topic here. First time GST relief for first time home buyers. So obviously, as we know, federal elections happened and the government came with a GST relief for first-time home buyers. Now, this is fantastic for first-time home buyers. I really like to see the government putting in more initiatives to save some people some money when they're trying to get into the market. However, I really wish that they did this as a GST relief for all like new builds, not just for first time home buyers, because to be honest, I don't really know anybody as a first time home buyer in my area, in the Okanagan specifically, that's shopping out of the $600,000 to $700,000 is kind of that typical range that you see people capping out at with their first time homes. They have no equity, right? That's a lot of money to come up with, and especially with the down payment, right? So there's been some stuff to change the ability to get people into those places, right? Like I think they've extended the 5% to up to $1.5 million for minimum down payments now. So it just allows people to get into it a little bit more. But let's take a look here. We got the federal website up. So as you can see, GST relief for first-time home buyers on new builds valued up to $1.5 million. So what that means essentially is that there is going to be a full exemption for the first $1 million and then a linear taper off for the rest of it, which essentially ends up being $25,000 for a $1.25 million home. So first time home buyers rebate. If you are a first time home buyer, you may be eligible for this GST rebate, but you have to be you have to buy a new home from a builder. You have to build or hire someone else to build the home on the land that you own or lease, or you have to buy shares in a cooperative housing corporation. So those are the three things that are applicable to in order to get the rebate. And for other things to be a consideration, the first time home buyer portion of this, you obviously have to be 18 years of age, Canadian citizen and a permanent resident, and you have to have not lived in a home, whether inside or out of Canada, that is owned by a spouse or common law or partner in the same calendar year or the 4 years preceding that. So this year, which is 2025, and all the way back to 2024, 3, 2, and 1. So 2020 is the earliest that you would have had to have been able to live in a house that your spouse or companion owns in order to qualify for that. So together with existing GST new housing rebates, the first-time home buyer's GST rebate would provide up to 100% of the GST back to a home of $1 million and a tapered linear taper off all the way up to 1.5, and you won't get anything past 1.5. Fair enough. At that point, I think you got enough money that you can deal with that. So a few other stipulations. The first-time home buyer, if you're buying from a builder, the agreement of the purchase and sale has to be entered into before or after, May 27th, 2025, and before 2035. Construction on the home has to have started before 2031. Sorry, I said 2035, 2031. It has to have started by 2031 and have been completed by 2036. Home built or owner built homes, same thing pretty much. Any construction has to start or has to begin on or before or after May 27th, 2025, and be started obviously before 2031 and be completed by or substantially completed by 2036. So tons of time. 15 years to build a home, or 11 years to build a home. You got it. Shares in a cooperative. This one we don't really run into as many things about it, but it's essentially the same type of situation. You have to any agreement prior to May 27th doesn't work. You have to have entered the agreement after May 27, 2025 and before 2031, and the construction obviously has to have started before 2031 and be substantially completed by 2035. Any limitations related to this: an individual will not be permitted to claim the first-time home buyer's rebate more than once. If their spouse or common law has previously claimed it, they can't. Pursuant to an assignment sale, the first-time homebuyer assumes the rights and obligations of another person, that is the home buyer or the purchaser of a new home, under an agreement of purchase and sale with the builder. The first-time homebuyer's rebate would not be available if the original agreement of the purchase and sale was entered into before 2020 or May 27. All these numbers make me jumble my words. If an agreement of the purchase and sale of a new home was originally entered into before May 27th, the agreement is subsequently canceled and a new agreement of the purchase and sale is entered into, the GST rebate will be disallowed in respect to the sale of a new agreement. So I believe that if you cancel the original agreement, you don't get the home buyer's GST rebate if you enter into a new one. So that is essentially the gist of it. Nothing too crazy to go on there. I just wanted to touch base on it. If you have any questions, I would love to hear your take. Drop a like, hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and drop a comment. Engage in the comments. I really like to try to get people interested and talking about real estate. Like I said before, a little bit of a hot take at the end here. I personally think that the government is focusing too much on first-time home buyers, and they're not focusing enough on second-time home buyers and allowing people to move equity through the housing market, right? They really wanted to try to curb that because for some reason they think that if you allow people to make money on the housing market, you take away from the people who can't afford housing. But what's happening is that it's already too late. What I think needs to happen is that no corporations or nobody's allowed to own more than 2 residential properties at any given time. Something like that would be a lot more prevalent, because that way when it comes to like property transfer tax, for example, I've used this example before. Me and my wife are the perfect situation. We have nowhere to go, right? We bought in COVID. So if we try to trade equity anytime right now, we're just losing money if we sell our house. So there's no point in moving. The problem is the amount of money it takes for the next purchase. Buying the first time is a lot cheaper because of the exemptions, but selling for the first time is really expensive because now you have to pay your first set of realtor fees, and then you also have to pay property transfer tax on your next purchase. So if you're not making enough money to make both of those come out as a net positive or whatever, then a lot of people are going to struggle, and they're just not going to see the point. There's just not going to be a point to move. So that's the one thing I would like to see, is just a little bit more relief on the middle class and a little bit more relief in the transfer of properties. I don't necessarily want it to be easier for people to own multiple properties. I want it to still be incentivized towards getting people to live in the homes, not rent them and invest in them. But at the same time, you need people like myself and the last of the millennial generation, or the millennial generation that's investing all their money into the housing market. You really need them to step up and to build these homes and to renovate them and to get them ready for people. Because if we're not putting the work into the infrastructure, then who's going to, right? The next generation's struggling to even get the money to get in. So yeah, it's a big one to talk about, or at least I think it's a big one to talk about. First things first, I want to see property transfer tax go away. I think it's a absolute waste of money and time, and we see nothing beneficial coming out of it. So let me know what you think. Do you like this first-time homebuyers rebate? Who do you think it's going to be beneficial for? How often do you think it's going to be used? Do you really think the federal government's going to save taxpayers $3.9 billion over the next few years over it? And what's your take on property transfer tax? Do you think it needs to go? Leave a comment below, and I would love to hear your takes. So thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Hizzy Hustle, and I'll catch you on the next one.
you.